And we are back for an all-new Keep It. I'm Ira Madison III.
I'm Frotagine person, Louis Vertel. I forget the tense of Frotagine. Doesn't it mean like F word -ry, like gayness?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's an adjective. I think it means it's a state of being. But anyway, this is to say we're bringing this up because the Pope died. And first of all, to be honest, I'm a little shocked how sad certain people I know are about the Pope. But just everybody I know is a lapsed Catholic, but there's still some, I guess he's a way better Pope than average, as one very funny tweet by George Severus said. He was pro-gay, but also pro-gay slurs. And doesn't get more dimensional and fabulous than that.
That sounds like every gay I know.
That's what I mean. Yeah, he was right.
Yeah.
He was one of us, if you will. And also Francis, come on, one of the gayer names. Have you seen the Jessica Lange movie, Francis? It's for the Queens.
Yeah, I haven't.
Okay, get on that.
Yes, but I know Francis Scott Key.
Oh, yeah.
And let me tell you something. He was always tickling the ivories.
Okay. Down at Fort McHenry, he's like, there's a war going on, but I have got to write a song.
I found out the Pope died in a very peculiar way. Not peculiar, but I was just hanging out with people, and someone said, "Oh, the Pope's dead," as it happens when people die.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not hear it, I guess. And 20 minutes later, I was looking at my phone, and I was like, "Guys, the Pope died." And they were like, "We've been talking about that for the past 20 minutes, Ira. What have you been doing?" I was like, scrolling TikTok.
Oh, wow. You were dissociating. Is this a late night? Yeah, this happened in the middle of the night somewhere. So you were inevitably out being vampiric.
Yeah. It was late night. It was an evening. And the evening that the Pope died, I guess, this has been the one of two jokes that everyone has been making online, because humor online is usually just, let's make one joke and then let's just keep repeating it.
Let's pretend we didn't hear it before, or let's pretend there needs to be a new audience for this joke, and I'll be the one to deliver it.
Mm-hmm. The first joke, obviously, is the fact that he had a visit from Vice President of the United States, not my United States,
right?
J.D. Vance, the day before. And did J.D. Vance kill the Pope? Did the Pope shuffle off this mortal coil after visiting true evil?
Right.
There's been variations of this. And I have to say, I think that the Pope was probably already dead.
You think when he met him, it was like a Weekend at Bernie's situation?
Yeah, I think he was like, J.D. Vance is on the calendar. He was like, girl, I'm going to go.
He's like, just prop me up. Let him talk.
And J.D. Vance, the Trump, that like these people, they could walk into a room with a dead body, have one of their annoying conversations with them, and then just leave.
Right, and then tell you that the conversation went swimmingly. That's like their whole MO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a shame that the Pope has to meet with anybody named JD, let alone that JD. So I was like doubly upset when I found out that's how he went.
Also, why are you meeting with the Pope?
I don't think he has anything to learn from the Pope, and I don't think the Pope has anything to learn from him. So it was giving a stalemate.
Also, if he's on the verge of death here, obviously, we saw Conclave, which, by the way, is the other joke that everyone keeps making. Someone said, this is like a real life Conclave. And I wanted to say, no, Conclave was just a movie depicting something that happens in real life.
Right.
So,
well, the opposite. The art was inspired by the life, and then it came back to the life. Yeah.
Conclave wasn't a fictional movie. I mean, it was fiction, but it's a thing that happens when you select the actual Pope when they die.
I was pleased not to see too many jokes in the very old vein, the very 2005 Pope John Paul II mold of he's a fancy man in a dress. I think we've moved past that. I think when Conclave comes up, we still talk about how they are dressed fabulously, but it's not quite, lip sync for your life, the popes or whatever the joke was at the time,
Yeah. Well, Pope Francis wasn't very ornate.
Which, by the way, would be my whole thing if I were the Pope. Like, I would be named Pope Ornatia.
Yes. Now, I spent the immediate moments after finding out the Pope died to do a Google search, because I couldn't remember if the Pope had an actual beef with Nicki Minaj after her Roman Holiday performance at the Grammys.
Oh, right, yeah. Probably not.
Remember when she brought a pope to the red carpet and then did that whole exorcist thing, even though the pope was sort of dressed like a bishop. In my brain, I was remembering the Catholic Church or even, the Vatican making a statement about it. And I don't know why I had this whole...
a narrative played out.
Narrative played out. What's that called again? When you're...
the Mandela effect or whatever?
Yes. I don't know why Mandela affected the Vatican beefing with Nicki Minaj. More likely the Vatican would beef with Azalea Banks.
Right.
Than Nicki Minaj. But in my mind, the Vatican had issued some sort of statement, and it was so sad to learn that it never happened.
The most important thing about the Pope is that once upon a time, it was their job to get into fights with people like Madonna. Madonna would have a tour, and there would be a section of it where she would be masturbating on stage or something, and there'd be, 100,000 crucifixes around. And then somebody there at the Pope's, office has a typewriter, and he's like, well, I've got to write something today. And so he writes something in response to that. And in fact, the Immaculate Collection is dedicated to the Pope. If you read the liner notes, she goes, my divine inspiration, which I believe is a bit cheeky because, as you know, the Immaculate Collection is a pun on the Immaculate Conception. So a lot of Catholicism going on there. Speaking of which, more Madonna.
I thought she wrote that for divine.
Yeah, mysteriously no. I think divine was gone by that time. Do you know what Madonna's second greatest hits was supposed to be called before she just went with GHV2, which is Greatest Hits Volume 2? It's such a good title, and I can't believe they got rid of it, and it's also religiously themed.
What was it?
The Second Coming.
Oh my God.
Come on, Madonna. That's why we're here, for nasty puns.
That was a little too spicy for the mid-2000s, I guess.
Yeah, and maybe too spicy for those songs too, which is very Ray of Light and bedtime stories, kind of calming energy.
She wasn't that sexy in that era.
Yeah,
although
provocative, yeah.
I've come to Frozen many times.
Oh, please. Why am I not whirling in the desert right now dressed in goth materials? It makes no sense.
Yes, the Pope's death has been making me sort of revisit, I guess, our high school, college era where the last Pope died.
Yeah.
I was in Jesuit school at the time. And so there was obviously a lot of chatter about the smoke. And you remember all the late night jokes about selecting a new Pope. And I guess we're going into that again. Most people are aware of the process now because they've seen Conclave. I'm sure the views in Conclave are going to uptick this week.
Yeah, right. That does feel like a movie that everybody ended up seeing from Oscar season in an old school way. Like everybody did end up seeing that movie. I am a little blown away that there is a Pope candidate right now whose last name is Pizzaballa. Pizzaballa, which sounds like an 11-year-old who beats your ass in Fortnite.
Yeah, it sounds like a movie written by Nick Vallelonga, who wrote Green Book, if you recall. It sounds like the follow-up to that movie that never came out that was called That's Amore.
Which starred Katherine Heigl. Maybe a snuff film? Maybe she's like, end me here? I don't know.
But I'm thinking about who the next Pope might be, and I have a controversial thing to say.
Go ahead.
People are always doing this weird representation thing with these white institutions, especially these institutions of colonialist history. And there are people being like, the next Pope should be Black. The next Pope should be Asian. And I kind of don't think so. I don't think we really need a Black Pope for quote unquote progress in the world. I think we know what a Black president did to America.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your argument is that because Barack Obama exists, there should be a white Pope.
I think we've had a lot of backlash that we're currently living in from white people in America due to the fact that we had a Black president for 8 years. And I really don't want to see what the Catholics are going to get up to if there's a Black Pope.
You know what I would like from the papacy? How about a Top Chef-like show about making delicious hosts? Because let me just say something, growing up Catholic, the kind of Nabisco-ish wafer they would give you, not bringing me back to the nave, not bringing me back to the church. You've got to do something. There's got to be like a crust component or a sourdough or something. I'm sorry, there's no reason it shouldn't be delicious. You guys have a lot of money. Can it be delicious?
Also, the Black Pope would be from Africa, and I'm not going to blanket statement a lot of things as a Black person here, but Pope Francis was very, how do you say, progressive on sort of like gay people and a lot of other issues. And I just don't know if we're going to get that.
You're saying there may be a backslide
There may be a backslide here.
Okay. Right.
So let's get an American Pope.
Sure. And also, by the way, I think it is time. I mean, I think we can all agree on this. A hot Pope. It's just, I'm sorry. I saw the Jude Law show and that got me really enticed. Even Jonathan Pryce in the Two Popes, handsome man. Ain't no problem with a handsome man.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just like there were quotes like, have a black pope would revive the Christian faith in Africa and change people's views of Africa by showing them an African can hold this office. None of that shit ever happens.
No,
I'm sorry. It's just like, none of it ever happens. It's always stuff we talk about with the presidency or these other things. And it's always like, this person's going to change people's views. And I just think that white people, we're going to talk about the movie Sinners this week. I think that some things have stayed the same throughout all of history.
The white people were up to their tricks in that movie. I don't know if you caught that. Yeah.
And that's what they do.
Okay. Also this week, Ira has a solo interview with goddess Tina Knowles. She's the reason I'm wearing my House of Darion jeans today. You can't see them, but I am busting the fuck out of them.
You're looking bootylicious today.
If you will, yes. OED entry, bootylicious.
Yes, I chat with Tina Knowles about her new memoir, Matriarch, which gets into her upbringing. It gets into Solange and Beyonce's upbringing, Kelly Rowland's upbringing. It's a pretty sprawling book, and I think it sort of connects all the pieces from the information that's been doled out to us from the Knowles family for decades. You know, you always see interviews, well, when we used to get interviews with Beyonce,
right? And
then you hear about Uncle Johnny, or you hear about these other family members that are used to name them, like Sir Davis, etc. And it was nice to see all of the pieces tied together.
Oh, all right. So it's a very satisfying glimpse into the succession-like world of the Knowles family.
It opens with a family tree. There's a huge like Knowles family tree at the beginning of the book. And honestly, I love a book that opens up with a family tree. Okay, that is Dostoevsky vibes.
Yeah, right. Or like the Thornbirds or something.
So that's what we're going to get into this week. And we will be right back with all of the Keep It you've been begging for. Keep It is brought to you by OneSkin. After testing the efficacy of more than 900 so-called anti-aging peptides, OneSkin developed the OS1 peptide, the first ingredient to reverse skin's biological age by reducing the accumulation of zombie cells, aka those dysfunctional senescent cells that speed up aging.
OS1 works at the cellular level to reduce visible signs of aging like lines, wrinkles, and sagging skin, and you can only find OS1 in OneSkin's moisturizers, sunscreens, and now in their latest product, OS1 Hair. The Daily Scalp Serum tackles those same zombie cells in your hair follicles and is perfect for anyone dealing with hair loss, thinning, or shedding, or if you just want thicker, denser hair.
Listen, OneSkin makes me look less like a zombie boy, to quote Lady Gaga.
Which has become one of my favorite songs on the album. So this is lucky for the both of you. I am always looking to have more luscious hair. I have what I consider to be Mattel hair. It's rarely giving Elvis Presley is what I'm saying. And OneSkin is instrumental in making it look as fresh and chestnutty as you see. Founded and led by an all-woman team of skin longevity scientists, OneSkin is redefining the aging process with their proprietary OS1 peptide. Get 15% off with code KEEPIT at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code KEEPIT. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Invest in the health and longevity of your skin and scalp with OneSkin. Your future self will thank you.
Keep It is brought to you by ACORNS.
Do you know when investing confuses me? Anytime I turn on CNBC, what are they talking about? Ma'am, slow down. The ticker is confusing enough alone.
Savannah, slow down. I don't even get investing from Monopoly, okay? What is Community Chest?
No, just put me right in jail. Honey, I see the guy behind the bars, and he seems more inviting than the Monopoly guy.
April is Financial Literacy Month, and I'm illiterate.
Yeah, I would say we're not on the right track towards understanding what money does or why we should be allowed to have it, specifically you and I.
Listen, they made a whole month reminding us to finally take control of our money. And good news is you don't actually need 30 days. Acorns makes it easy to start saving and investing for your future in just 5 minutes.
You don't need to be an expert. Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that matches you and your money goals. You don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you get started with the spare money you've got right now, even if all you've got is spare change. You know what I like about Acorns? They make it an unthinking financial contribution. If it was something where I had to constantly be grabbing change and figuring out how to contribute it, it would stress me out. But Acorns makes it such an organic part of my life that it makes you feel more organized while you do less thinking.
And you can sign up now and join over 14 million all-time customers who have already saved and invested over $25 billion with Acorns. Head to acorns.com/keepit or download the Acorns app to get started. Paid non-client endorsement. Compensation provides incentive to positively promote Acorns. Tier 1 compensation provided. Investing involves risk. Acorns Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. View important disclosures at acorns.com/keepit. Director Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan have teamed up once again for Sinners, a period horror film filled with twins, vampires, and just the right amount of racism. So, Louis, let's sink our teeth into it, shall we? And it should go without warning, this conversation has spoilers for the film Sinners. First things first about this film. Shout out to Ben Stiller for lighting Variety's ass up for their article about Sinners. So the movie made like near $55 million this weekend, and it was the biggest debut for an original film since Jordan Peele's Us, which opened to $71 million in 2019. Two original horror films from Black creators, which should be exciting, especially in a world where we're getting nothing but remakes and sequels and things based on quote unquote IP. But of course, Variety's headline was just that, well, we don't know if it's going to recoup its budget. And Ben Stiller tweeted, in what universe does a $60 million opening for an original studio movie warrant this headline?
Slay. Loved him since Heavyweights, where he had really grisly Tom Cruise energy, if you haven't seen that movie recently.
You know what? Heavyweights was almost my pick for comedy last week when we did our sports movie draft.
Oh, yeah. That is very kind of technically a sports movie. Like, they play sports in it every once in a while. I mostly remember that there's a big, like, trampoline thing in the water they all bounce off of, and I have to say I laughed. But, no, okay, about this movie. First of all, I can't believe I have to generate excitement around the very basic human communication idea that people heard this movie was good and then they all went and saw it and now seem to be telling their friends and it's now getting popular. This is how movies should work. Like, you know, oh, they spent a lot of money making it really good and now we're all going to go see the really good thing that doesn't really even feel like any other movie. I feel bad for people listening to this who don't want spoilers because I went in not knowing a thing about it. And I think it's even better if you go in knowing it's not really, you don't even think it's going to be horror really when you start watching the movie. You know, there's a foreboding energy to what's happening. It's in the 1930s. It's in the South. It opens with the scene where a character is like slashed up and he goes to church and he's call the sinner. And then and then it flashes back. We figure out what happens to him, but you don't necessarily know that it's going to be a vampiric battle royale, which is what it ends up being. The thing I really loved about this movie was that it would just twist genres on a dime, but it was very organic. Like, it starts as this, you know, drama about music and these people putting together this a juke joint that, you know, seems like it's just going to be good times. And then slowly you realize there are these people on the outskirts who want in and we don't know why they want in. And then that's when the horror movie ensues. But up until that point, it is purely an acting movie, and the actors in this movie are so good. You have Michael B. Jordan playing a dual role, and my God, do I love the old school tomfoolery of a dual role. Where Peter Sellers, baby, where you at? Mr. Lee Marvin and Kapaloo, come back to us.
I agree that knowing very little about this movie is of a benefit to watching it. I saw it with my friend Gino this weekend, and during the movie, he leaned over to me and he said, "This is a vampire movie." Right. And I think a lot of people did not realize that. I knew that. I knew from the trades when this was coming out that Ryan Coogler was working on a twist on a vampire movie, and I'd sort of forgotten about it. Mostly because when the initial trailer came out for Sinners, they do a good job of hiding that it's a vampire movie. You just know it's spooky, you know? And I also managed to miss in the promos for it that Michael B. Jordan was going to be playing twins.
Right. And I like how he plays them both too. You get Michael B. Jordan playing slick characters, which there's something about slickness, even when you know it you know, like a greasy salesman, they still have a, you know, here's an old word, swagger about them. And it is very sexy, namely when they are very well dressed, as they both are in this movie.
Yes, and to go back to what you said about word of mouth, I saw the movie last night as we were planning to see it, to discuss it this week. But all throughout the weekend, I kept running into people who were either asking if you'd see Sinners or saying that they were going to go see Sinners. And I have friends who were planning to see it this week. And that's just so exciting when that happens for a movie.
Yeah. No, and by the way, this is the time of year when I'm not watching movies. And in fact, have almost made the decision not to watch them. Like, I know we're getting repetitive type movies or movies based on IP or the same superhero movie again and again. And yet it did not take much for people to say, for me to realize, oh, I have to see this. So it's like, even just like some excitement, I think can really generate people to get up. Like a cynical person like me who just wants to like watch the old like Criterion channel all the time. Like, I will go to the theater if you can generate actual excitement around like a new idea. And by the way, from beginning to end, this movie is new ideas. The one thing I think the best thing I can say about this movie is it's never contrived.
The movie is so many big swings that feel in the world that Ryan Coogler has been playing in. He's always had films with Black leads and films that discuss racism and sort of cultural appropriation. I think going back to Black Panther, for instance, which was so much smarter than the average Marvel movie. You know,
I think so much more like dramatic heft than the average superhero movie too.
Even starting with that scene in the beginning where Michael B. Jordan is playing Killmonger and he's at the National Museum in London and he's speaking about how all of the pieces in the museum were sort of stolen from other cultures. I think we see a through line from that to this movie, which besides being about vampires and, you know, it uses vampires sucking your blood and taking over your soul and your body as a metaphor for cultural appropriation and just sort of like white people stealing music, not just from Black people either, just stealing music from other cultures in general. There's a amazing sequence in this movie, which, by the way, this movie is a stealth musical.
Yes. No, I think you come away from this movie like thinking the best thing about it was the music, even though there's no moment where it's just here we're fully watching a performer sing a song from beginning to end.
Yes, it's set in a juke joint, so it's not a musical in the sense of it's wicked. It's a musical in the sense that there are amazing musical numbers in it. And there's one in particular that I don't want to ruin for people, but it just dives into the history of music from cultures before the 1930s and how it thrusts into culture in the present. And I think the entire theater was in awe.
It's this surreal moment where you see people, performers from all different eras sort of appear, even though this takes place in the 1930s. So you're surprised to see whatever, you know, breakdancers or whoever appears. Can I say about that sequence? I do think it was brilliantly directed. The actual dancing to me felt a little like an emotional "So You Think You Can Dance" number, where it's just like too many performers, like too much thrusting around. I don't know. I thought it looked good, and yet the dancing, it was like very heavy-handed to me also.
Yes, well, it is a mainstream blockbuster.
Yeah,
and sometimes you got to hand it to the audience.
True, and that's the part where you're like, audience, this is what this is about. We're at a juke joint where like the originality of Black people and not non-white people in America is like getting a place to thrive.
Let's just say I had a lot of conversations with people after Black Bag where they were like, what is this movie about?
Right. Yeah, I underestimate that. You know, I have friends who
can't
like
get too smart.
Yeah. And it often you need messages explicitly told to people. Also, I will say in this movie, I don't remember the last time I saw Haley Steinfeld act. She was really good in this movie, Edge of 17, a few years ago, which is one of the few teen movies I've seen that really brilliantly explains how teenagers can be mature beyond their years and immature beyond their years. So if you haven't seen that, it's great. And obviously, she is an Oscar nominee for her teenage performance in True Grit. She, in this movie, plays an ex of one of the Michael B. Jordan characters. And she has an accent in this movie that I did not anticipate. It's like pretty good. And then later, of course, spoiler, she gets bitten by one of the vampire people and becomes sort of a prime source of the violence inside this juke joint. The way this woman says, "And we're going to get every last one of you." The grit was too true. I did not want to see that. That was scary.
She did a great job at playing human and vampire, which is sort of the fun of this. It's not just Michael B. Jordan playing dual roles. Everyone gets to play dual roles,
yes,
in a sense. And her turn into vampire was, she becomes so much sexier, so much nastier, so much ballsier. I need to see more Haley Steinfeld on screen.
Yeah, it was sort of like a no Dana, only Zool moment, if you're familiar with the Ghostbusters canon. Yes, she's really good in it. You know who's fucking awesome in this movie? Delroy Lindo. Keep it, visitor, who is fabulous anyway. He was so good in Da 5 Bloods a few years ago. He's been in so many movies. He's in Malcolm X, whatever. He, in this movie, gets so many laughs, and you forget after the movie that there is a lot of just comedy in it too. Based on, and it's namely in his character. I love how he played it in this movie.
Yeah, the movie is funny too. The movie's funny. The movie is quiet and emotional in parts. I think everyone really turns out amazing performances. Maybe Jamie Lawson, I think, is really good as Pearline. She's sexy too. She has a great musical number where she sings, and I think that Lee Jun Lee is fantastic too as Grace. She's the Chinese wife of a general store owner, and I just loved her and her husband in the film. I thought that all the performances in this movie were really damn good.
You know what? Actually, the flow of the movie reminded me a little bit of Parasite, in that it starts as one kind of movie and then kind of morphs into a second genre, and by the third, it really reveals itself to be. Parasite isn't really horror, but there's like a very violent climax, and there's a very violent climax to this movie too. And I would say I would grade them critically the same way, which is when this movie starts out and it's just acting, and we're in the 1930s, and it has this sort of Paper Moon energy of like grifting and through the Depression. I love that part of the movie because it's a pure acting experience. You get Michael B. Jordan just acting his ass off. That part's an A+. The second part of the movie, when we're at the juke joint and then you realize something is afoot, something is wrong, I also give that an A+. By the time we get to the actual horror, like the climactic battle, then it became a little expected to me. And by that point, the themes of the movie are already so readily apparent that the actual climactic fight feels almost perfunctory, like just an obligatory end of the movie. I would give that part a B+. So for me, ultimately, it's like an A- movie.
What I did love about the final battle sequence, though, is it turns on its head what you would, I guess, expect from a horror movie where people are battling vampires. I think that a lot of the characters are so well drawn in the first 2/3 of the film, where all of their actions are believable in the last third. You know, it's not just characters being noble to be noble. It is, you really get a sense of who these characters are. You get a sense of the family that they're worried about back in the town. I just really love the characters in this film, and obviously it's because 2/3 of the film is drama before it really jumps into just nasty, bloody horror in the end. But it reminds me of great horror movies like Halloween, The Exorcist, Scream, and Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, where you get to know characters who feel fresh and original and like people you actually want to see succeed, people you actually emotionally care for by the time you get to the end of the film.
Yeah. Also, so part of this like a group of white people that sort of infiltrates the juke joint, they play music themselves. And it's interesting. They play at one point, and there's like a fiddle, and it's kind of folky. It reminds you of like the Carter family from the 30s, maybe. And it's funny, like the people listening, the people in the juke joint say, "Oh, this sounds kind of good." Like they're almost kind of fooled by it. I like how they worm their way in. That's sort of an interesting part of the movie too. But by the way, this is a movie about genre twisting. Part of what happens with this Irish family is that one of them starts to Irish dance. Baby, if I see Irish dance, I know it's a horror movie. That shit is haunted. Irish dance is the original Suspiria, period.
Yeah. And part of it, though, is that's not even really there dancing, right? The two of the people who show up are members of the Klan. And I'm not sure if they're actually Irish or whatever, but I think you get a lot from whatever demon is inside of them. It's the devil, you're like coming through the vampires, etc. And you're finding out that they just seem to have taken music from white cultures of the past. They've gotten this Irish dancing from, maybe they got it over there in Ireland, and maybe they've crossed over, etc. And now they're trying to get to the other cultures.
Yeah.
And what I love about this hilarious sequence in the movie is you get these Native Americans who are hunting the vampires in the beginning of the movie, right? And then it's sundown, and basically they're like, bye. And then you do not see them the rest of the movie.
Yeah, brother, we tried. Yeah.
Yeah. They're like, we've done enough. I think that's great. And one thing that's very interesting about this movie too is there's been some anger online about the final scene of the movie just because it happens during and after the credits.
I did not see this. I left before the end credits. I'm sorry, religiously, I have to get going. I'm so sorry. I'm thinking about my validation in the parking garage. If you've been to the Grove, you know it is hell.
There's a final scene in the movie, which I think is beautiful. And in a way, I can see both sides of it. One, I hate this Marvel brain rot where you have to sit till the end of a credit sequence to find out something else that's happening in a movie. And mostly they used to be interesting in Marvel movies, and now they're just sort of, oh my God, look at this celebrity we got for a cameo. Or here's a joke that could have actually just been in the movie.
Right.
This was an actual important scene for the ending of the movie. And I don't know, maybe Ryan Coogler is just trying to train people to respect the credits and respect watching it the same way that we would on Broadway, like you sit and watch the final bow.
Yeah.
And in musicals, some people get up and leave, but other people sit and listen to the orchestra finish playing.
Right.
And I think that's interesting in a way to maybe be trying to train audiences to do, if only because Ryan Coogler is just such a lover of film. I don't know if you saw that 10-minute video he did where he explained the different formats that you could watch Sinners in, but I thought that was incredibly cool. He talks about filming in 35 millimeter, talks about filming for IMAX. He shows you like the different kinds of film, like even 8 millimeter, like that they all are made from the same thing, but they're a little bit wider. And he explains the ratios in which films are shot and which other directors use. And
no, wait a minute. He was like, what happened at the end of this fucking movie? It sounds like I missed something.
Yes. Well, at the end of the movie, more spoilers for people. If you did not see the end, what happens is, when Michael B. Jordan is about to kill his brother, and you don't see it happen, and then he goes and saves Sammy so that he can, go off and create music. You find out that basically he made a deal with his brother.
Oh, okay.
To let Sammy, he convinced him to let Sammy live and continue to create music and better music, etc. And vampire Michael B. Jordan shows up at the end of the movie, and he's watching him play in 1992. And you think there's a moment where he's going to turn him into a vampire, but he actually just embraces him.
Oh, yeah, because during the beginning of the credits, you see Buddy Guy playing music in like 1992, and I just thought, oh, that's cool that he's there, like Chicago blues legend, and a real link to the past. So I thought that was just how the movie was.
No, it's him in the future.
Oh,
Buddy plays him in the future. Yeah.
Oh, why am I so dumb? Okay, I'm mad at them though. Don't pretend like I'm supposed to know how to interact with this credit sequence. Like I have to sit around, whatever.
But the beauty of this movie too is that I think it's a great length for a movie like this. I think that at no point was I like bored with this movie, and I can't wait to kind of see it again, to be honest.
I would like to see it again because I think there are details you can gloss over, especially when you're just swept up in the genre specific fun of the movie.
It's also such a sexy movie.
Oh,
too.
Quite.
I want to mention this scene between Michael B. Jordan and Wunmi Mosaku, who is a Nigerian British actress who plays Annie in the film, who had a former relationship with one of the other brothers that Michael B. Jordan plays. She is phenomenal.
I really did enjoy her in the movie. She is a real find. And that scene, it's very sensual. Also, and then as the movie goes on, she becomes one of the vampire experts. Like she's like, I know what we can do and what we can't do with these people. And she's very commanding and authoritative during those moments too. That's a real breakout performance.
Yeah. Also, I really appreciate the fact that she is discussing the spiritual world, and discussing like the hates is like a word for what she calls them initially, but then when you get closer to the end of the movie, she really is just like, oh no, this is vampires. Like I thought we were gonna do one of that weird genre things where we're not acknowledging what it is that's in the movie. Like I hate when people do that.
Oh yeah, no, the movie says zombie movie. Vampires are here. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Look they bit. Look, we need a wooden stake. Look, we need garlic. Yeah.
Right, because everyone would know what a fucking vampire is in 1930.
Right, yeah. Oh no, yeah. Nosferatu was already queen by that time. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I want to say about this movie, lastly, is a lot of people have compared this to other movies. And obviously, there's a lot of traces of John Carpenter in this. Ryan Coogler he's a film student, first and foremost. So he's a student of every genre that he works in. There's been comparisons of this film to Robert Rodriguez's From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the commentary online from snotty film people is, this movie's a lot like From Dusk Till Dawn, except it's good. Let me tell you something, bitch. That movie is fantastic.
Oh, there people don't like that movie? I thought that's why we cared about Robert Rodriguez.
Right, discovering
it wasn't the Spy Kids movies, girl.
It better be The Faculty, if anything.
Okay,
then.
sure, yeah.
But discovering in 2025 that people have this secret hatred for From Dusk Till Dawn feels annoying and contrarian.
Okay. And we do contrarianism so well here. So if you're gonna
if
you're gonna appropriate our art, which by the way is a theme of this movie, you better do it well.
Yeah, that movie is so funny and sexy, and Salma Hayek's great in it, and George Clooney's funnier than he is in most movies.
He needs to be in more funny movies. Why do we have to always believe him as gravitas guy? Can't he just be hilarious sometimes?
Well, I'm laughing looking at his hair dye in Good Night and Good Luck.
By the way, all those fucking plays are not getting good. We're going to talk about this in a couple of weeks. Those plays are not getting good reviews. I'm about to see Sarah Snook in a couple of weeks in Picture of Dorian Gray. Can't wait for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A lot of these plays aren't getting good reviews, and some of them won't be getting good reviews from me.
Okay. But speaking of horror with endless twists, did you know that under the second Trump administration, LGBTQ people are under attack? And while we're loud and proud every Pride season this year, we have to make more noise than ever. To make your voice heard and seen this Pride, grab a Join or Die t-shirt or sticker from the Crooked Store. The design is a nod to the famous historical political cartoon, so you can spread the message of queer resistance while you sweat it out at WeHo Pride or wherever the hell else you take your Molly. Go to crooked.com/store to shop. But now you can be gay by listening to Ira's interview with Tina Knowles.
Keep It is brought to you by Planned Parenthood Federation of America. No matter what, your sexual and reproductive health decisions, including abortion, belong to you. Planned Parenthood organizations are fighting for common sense policies that protect our right to control our own bodies and futures, and keep personal health care decisions between patients and their doctors, not unqualified lawmakers. Nearly 80% of Americans want that.
The attacks on Planned Parenthood, our healthcare, our basic rights, they just don't stop. But you know what else doesn't stop? Planned Parenthood. The amazing staff and volunteers at Planned Parenthood health centers across the country do whatever they can to provide high-quality, affordable care to 2 million annual patients, no matter what nonsense some people in power try to pull. You can help. Donate to support Planned Parenthood at plannedparenthood.org/defend. That's plannedparenthood.org/defend.
Keep It is brought to you by Beam. What's keeping me up at night? Honestly, the fact that I have slept for 3 hours the entire Coachella weekend.
Well, you don't sound like it. I'm kidding. You know what's been keeping me up recently? The television series The Pit. I haven't watched a medical drama like this since, get ready, Grey's Anatomy. My God, it's addicting. And I honestly can't understand why, because everything that happens in that show is so harrowing.
I'm obsessed with 24 Meets the Hospital. I think that's why it's stressful. It's one day.
That's true. That's why I'm excited to tell you about something else that's truly changed the game for me, Beam's Dream Powder. Dream helps me sleep through the night, no more tossing, no more turning, and I wake up feeling refreshed, not groggy. It's become a must in my nightly routine, helping me recharge so I can get up and stay engaged in what matters most.
So what makes Dream so effective? Well, it's packed with a powerful blend of all natural ingredients that actually work. Reishi, known for its calming properties, magnesium, which supports deep, restorative sleep, L-theanine, an amino acid that helps you relax without feeling drowsy, apigenin, which supports falling asleep faster, and melatonin to help regulate your natural sleep cycle.
It's also just nice to drink something tasty before you go to bed, and you stir it in some warm water and sip it, and you feel luxurious like a woman in a yogurt commercial. And I sip it and go off to the sleepiest sleep of all time in my sheets that I'm currently obsessed with. And by the way, I'm not the only one. Beam's Dream Powder has improved over 17.5 million nights of sleep for people across the country. Here's the deal. Beam is giving Keep It listeners an exclusive 40% off. That's right, 40% off their best-selling Dream Powder, but only for a limited time.
All you need to do is go to shopbeam.com/keepit and use code KEEPIT at checkout. That's shopbeam.com/keepit and use code KEEPIT for 40% off. Because let's be honest, you can't stay in the fight if you're too tired to show up. Rest well, wake up ready, and keep pushing for progress. Rest is resistance. I was truly excited when I heard that this guest was going to be joining us this week. She is the visionary behind House of Darion, the storied costume designer behind Destiny's Child, Beyonce, countless films, the vice chairwoman of Sacred Hair Care, and, according to Billboard, the Mother of the Year. We all know her daughters, but now she's sharing her own story in her upcoming memoir, Matriarch, out on April 22nd. Please welcome to Keep It, Mama Tina Knowles.
Thank you. That was such a nice introduction.
Thank you. It is honestly an honor to be able to talk with you today, especially after reading this fantastic memoir of yours.
Glad you enjoyed it.
Thank you. There's a lot of heavy things that we can get into in the memoir, but first, I just want to talk about the process of remembering your life and just getting it onto the page, getting it out into a story that just, it's so comforting to read. One thing I really love is that I was making a Spotify playlist as I was reading because I love how you're just remembering specific songs that you were listening to with your family. You're listening to Sade when you have, Beyonce as a kid. You're listening to the Chantels in there, Jackie Wilson, Archie Bells, the Isley Brothers. Is music just always been just a big part of your life? And how did you just sort of recall these musical moments, or have they stayed with you the entire time? A lot of
them stayed with me, and a lot of them I just researched songs from that time, and then it would just hit me. I would remember them, but definitely, the childhood ones are a little tougher, but when I was a teenager, my life has just been filled with music. I had older siblings and they played music all the time. It was just always a part of our family life. And so The later years and teenage years, I can remember every one of those. I was in a singing group, so I just lived and breathed music. Yeah.
It was such a joy to read too about the singing group that you were in. Even hearing that your own mom and your dad, were singing before you were born, and you hadn't really known about it. I guess, how important has it been for you to keep music in the family, and how beautiful has it been, I guess, for Beyonce and Solange to be able to take that gift that's been in your family for so long and, take it into the stratosphere?
Well, I mean, it's obviously so rewarding, because just to, I didn't find out until I was almost, I was a teenager that my parents sang. They never were around me. I mean, I would hear my mom humming, and, she would sing little things to me, but to know that that was in their blood, I was just so happy, because I wondered where it came from. I knew it came from, from the time that I was pregnant. My ex-husband would sing to my stomach. Like, we played jazz, and music was so soothing. It's been at every important moment of my life. Music has been at the births. It's been at the deaths, because in my family, it's a Creole family. So after the burial, we go somewhere and we party. And some people find that kind of strange. Even for me, sometimes it was difficult, when my mom passed away, because I remember telling my dad, y'all got all this music playing and people are dancing and they're drinking, and I didn't feel like celebrating. And my dad said, that is our tradition. That is how we heal. And so it's just subliminally and just obviously been such a part of my life, and music makes everything better.
One thing I've loved beyond the music too is just sort of the way that you talk about your family history, and how it all just seems to come together and make sense as a fan of everything that I've seen. I know that I was a fan of Destiny's Child. I was at the TRL tour and the Survivor tour. And I worked at it as a high schooler in Milwaukee at Summerfest. And then seeing Beyonce, and then seeing, House of Darion, seeing Sacred, seeing all of these products. And then Uncle Johnny mentioned too, on Renaissance, you're always getting bits and pieces of family history from Beyonce as she's doling them out to us. And then to read Matriarch, which opens up with a wonderful family tree of everyone. And then you talk about how your family name was just spelled wrong on each birth certificate, until finally you were able to have Beyonce on yours. How, you struggled with that name too, your full name as a kid, but then you name your daughter Beyonce. How has it been for you to, I guess, finally tell your story, finally tell your family's story, and I guess really feel like Matriarch ties everything together for fans who have learned bits and pieces for years?
That's interesting, because I was reading the comments on something, and they said, wow, that's on the song Levi's Jeans. They were like, that's who Celestine is, because they don't know who Celestine is. They think that it's just, word on a song. But what I can say is that everything that we've done has been very, very intentional. And reading that book and just going back in the memories of Parkwood, which is Beyonce's company, that was our street. Kirby, I mean, just all of the streets and all of the things that we, our history of our lives, everything has been intentional. And some things that aren't even intentional were intentional. Because I recently learned, maybe about a month ago, that my great-grandmother on my dad's side, who I don't know my dad's people that well. I don't know their history as well as I do my mom's side. And I was looking for my great-grandmother's name on my dad's side, and I looked at a ancestry thing, and it said Louise Solange Remillard. And I was like, this is somebody trying to connect Solange's name to my history. So I called the researcher, the guy that helped me with the book, that did all the researching, and Kevin, and he hits me back and he says, Miss Tina, I've already found, not only is your great-grandmother's name Solange, your great-great-grandmother's name is Solange.
Wow.
Your great-great-grandmother's name has Solange. It was just, I had no idea. I got Solange's name out of a baby name book that I got in Paris. So I had no idea, but that's the ancestors, they were talking to me. Out of 300 names in a book, I picked Solange. So even when it wasn't intentional that I was connecting her to my heritage, I was doing it without even knowing. You know, it's things like that. Another thing I found out in doing T.S. Madison's podcast is that the day that Renaissance album came out was the day that Johnny died. And I got so emotional about that because that was just Johnny. You know, it was his spirit talking to us. So in my family, there are a lot of things that are obviously the reason, but there are a lot of things that I just think we're connected, you know?
Yeah. I mean, Renaissance, you know, is such a beautiful album. It came out on my birthday, actually. So, yeah, that's important to me.
Your birthday, and that was July 29th?
Yeah. Yeah. It came out with July 28th. It came out the evening for me when I was in LA. Like, it dropped in that evening. And so it was, like, very important. To me, it was a beautiful gift.
That was a connection. But that's the day that Johnny passed away. And I didn't know it until she brought that up to me.
Yeah. The stories about Johnny, the stories about you, you know, going to sessions with him and then, you know, asking a classmate and then getting to take him to like a gay club too, was really beautiful. And I think one thing I really enjoyed learning was just, you know, Beyonce's music has meant so much to her queer fan base. And it's beautiful to learn the backstory of you've just sort of been entrenched in that since you were young. You know, it reminds me, I guess, of my grandmother's brother, Bill. He passed away in the 90s, you know, when I was young. People always told me, you know, before I had come out, you know, I was remembering a lot of the things in your book about just the way you described Johnny, because family members would just always be like, you remind me of your Uncle Bill, you know, and that way that people let you know that they're comfortable with you, that they know where you're going in life. How, I guess, rewarding has it been to be able to tell Johnny's story, to let people know that he was behind, you know, some of these early Destiny's Child, you know, looks too?
Well, that has been one of the best parts because, you know, Johnny is an unsung hero. I mean, he was in my family. And, you know, he used to always say, Mary, I'm going to be famous. And I would say, okay, Johnny, you know, okay, you know, and who would have thought that so many years after his death that he would actually be famous? You know, it gives me chills just thinking about it. And the fact that, you know, he had no idea when he was playing that house music with my kids and dancing with them and turning them on to that genre of music, that this would happen one day, you know, so it is glorious for me, really.
I brought up my grandmother just a moment ago, and one thing that she went through in 2020 was she had breast cancer during COVID, and thankfully she's in remission now and still with us. Reading about you discovering that you had breast cancer last year in February, I guess, how was dealing with that moment? How was being able to write about it in the book? You talk about how it wasn't the original ending you had for it, but luckily you went through this journey and came out on the other end, and then you were able to put it in the book, and it feels like such a beautiful epilogue to Matriarch.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, it wasn't the original ending. It was ending with me at the beach, and and I just thought it was really important to talk about how I almost messed up because in 2022 I was supposed to go in for a mammogram, and COVID,
Mm-hmm.
and I was canceled. My appointment was canceled, and how I didn't. I thought I had always thought that I had the mammogram because you went through COVID for so long. It was supposed to be
Mm-hmm.
short, but it turned into a very long haul. And when we came back from COVID, I just always thought, oh, I had my mammogram. And when I went in for this mammogram, that's when I found out, oh, in 2022, you thought you had your test, but you did not.
Mm-hmm.
So what came to me is that I could have had 0 stage cancer, but because I missed that mammogram, I had stage 1, which was still, thank God, early enough so that I'm cancer free now. But
Mm-hmm.
just think about how you can get so busy and so wrapped up in everybody else's life and everything that you have going on and miss your appointments and not make yourself a priority in terms of health. And so I
Mm-hmm.
thought that that was good to put out to people. And also just you know me even having a breast reduction and having the guts to do that at 70 years old was, I thought, something that could give people, because I always wanted to do it and I just never had the courage to do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
just thought that that might give people a little boost, about it's never too late to do what you not I'm not pushing plastic surgery, so I don't want people to say that, but it's something that I dreamed about doing and I got to do, and I'm very happy that I did it.
There's just this beautiful I guess reflection of the Black experience in America too in writing about this, because I feel like you tie so many threads in the book of different medical moments that your family has gone through. Even one of Johnny's ex-partners, Peanut, who passed away, and like his aunt accusing him of having AIDS immediately. And then, there's doctors who don't believe, ailments that your family has. And then even thinking of when Beyonce shared with us, what she had gone through. How important has it been for you to also just share these things that have happened to your family, but also to let people know that this is what happens to Black families in general?
I think in the healthcare, we are the last, and we are not expected to advocate for ourselves. We're not expected to ask for a different doctor. That was the other reason why I did it, is because, I had a doctor that I wasn't happy with, but and thank God I have the means to pick another doctor. But even at the hospital that I was dealing with, they're a great hospital, but I'm gonna ask questions. And when I
Mm-hmm.
asked questions and they weren't received properly, then I asked for another doctor. And you
Mm-hmm.
have the right to do that. And I want people to know that they have to advocate, especially when you're a minority. You have to advocate for yourself medically. You would think by now you don't have to, but you do, because we are put last. And the
Mm-hmm.
research isn't done about Black people. There's no research. We're the last to get the research, and women are the last to get the research. So you have to be an advocate for yourself in healthcare. A lot of things happened to me when I was younger, and I watched us go into the hospital, and I don't think it was just a Black thing. I think it was a poor thing. When you're poor too, you're the last. So you're the last to get called in the waiting room. It just is a fact, unfortunate fact.
Mm-hmm. Talking about advocating for yourself too, there's a beautiful moment in the book where you talk about how I guess when, learning sewing was helpful for Johnny because he was gay, and also like a way for, people to enjoy being around him and not bully him. But you also talked about yourself, learning to sew, doing hair, etc.? Was you, trying to almost barter with people to get them to like you, to make yourself feel accepted? At what point I feel like in your life did you feel like you really overcame that impulse?
I would say probably in my, not very late, like into probably my 50s. I think I didn't know the word people pleasing. I wasn't familiar with it, but I definitely did a lot of people pleasing. And it was one kind of mixed up in being kind, because my mom was so kind and she did so many things for so many people. She put herself last. And to me, I love that quality because I was the recipient of all of that sacrifice that she made. It was one, but the other was I confused it with kindness. And as I got older and learned, and I was fiercely protective of my girls, and I didn't want them to be people pleasers. So I had to get out of it. And I realized that being kind, you don't have to always put yourself last. You don't always have to like dim your light to, to be kind.
One thing I love about you is that I love your Instagram feed, because I feel like you were always sharing a video. You're always just sort of like aware of, fun things that are happening, conversations that are happening in culture, but also like about the family, about the girls. What has it been like for you to, I guess, develop a way to be online? You talk about, when people had stories about Destiny's Child, like when LaToya and Latavia left, and coming up with rumors about Kelly being Matthew's child from an affair. I guess, how are you able to, I guess, be online, see what you see online all the time, and still sort of enjoy it and not want to, fight with people in the comments?
Well, I get so much enjoyment out of social media. It keeps me up on things. It is a fun place. It is a positive place if you make it that. There are the negative. I mean, there's so much negativity, so much ugliness, so much jealousy and hate that is spewed on social media. But I choose to look at the joyful things. Beyonce told me a long time ago, she's like, "Mama, don't scroll down." Headlines and don't scroll down. And it took me a long time, I have to be very honest, to be able to just look at something and take the good from it. And if it's something negative, I just keep on swiping. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to engage in the negativity that's on social media. They were so afraid for me to get on social media because they were like, "Mama, social media it can be really mean and they're going to tear you apart. You're going to make all these mistakes and, spell things wrong." And, and I do all the time. And I feel like, I can choose to take the joy from it because it's a great place. And if it's used correctly, and just swipe past all of the bull. That's what I choose to do.
Yeah. I mean, and if there's one thing I can say too about the Beehive, is that I feel like we have matured as a fan base as we've grown older. It's like there's no time for any of that online anymore. You're arguing with people, like the music is there.
Yeah. And they defend, but they don't feel like they have to, I think that the Beehive has grown up, like you said.
They're not on the attack.
That's right. They're not on the attack. They're wonderful. Yeah.
I want to ask one last thing. One other beautiful thing in the book is you talking about how the executives didn't like your clothes early on for the girls. They thought that they weren't going to, cross over with those looks. And then there's the moment, where they're sitting with Galliano, they're doing the Independent Woman video. And Lucy Liu is like, "I love that look." Right. And I really think now, with the return of Y2K fashion too, people are always looking at these Destiny's Child looks and being like, that just screams Y2K to me. It's like almost like you perfectly encapsulated the time period. What's it feel like to look back on those outfits, just to see how much they also inspired other pop girls, how much they're inspiring people now, you know, groups like Flow, etc. Like, people are looking back to these fashions of yours.
It makes me feel great. I was at the Billboard Awards this weekend, and there was a K-pop group there. I'm not even sure the name of it, but they had on these outfits that looked so much like something Destiny's Child would have done. And I was just smiling, and I'm sure they were wondering, why is this lady smiling and looking at our costumes? But it just brought me back. And I'm very proud of a lot of things that I did. For, you know, I got a lot of flack back in the day, and because I'm not formally trained, so I didn't go to design school. So I got a lot of flack for the things that I designed. But then I would see them on somebody's runway the next season, you know, some version of it or something that I did. You know, I had one sleeve off, and I'd see people walking down the runway, and it was very frustrating. It was very hurtful. I remember one time I did a dress for the Oscars, and Beyonce wore it, and people were raving over it. And then when they found out it was my design, they started just putting it down and saying the fabric looked like she went and got them off the curtains or whatever. You know, it was like it changed completely in an and it was very hurtful, but it's one of my proudest moments because I love that dress and it was beautiful.
Well, I've always really enjoyed those clothes. And I just want to say, with the Y2K stuff coming back, like, I'm always wearing like vintage FUBU pieces and stuff. And the one thing I cannot find on eBay, though, is old Darion stuff. So y'all might have to bring that back because I would love to be wearing some Darion.
I love that. That's such a compliment. I see from time to time, people will come where I am and they will have on some Darion jeans, or they'll have a t-shirt or a dress, the dresses. And I'm like, I'm so happy. Nothing makes me more happy because that was a good time, you know?
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mama Tina. And thank you for the book. It is truly just a wonderful memoir, and you should be very proud of this story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me. This was a great interview.
Yeah, thank you.
God bless you.